I haven't spoken about this in over 20 years. Not to my wife, not to my therapist, not even to myself, not really. I've buried it like a body under concrete. But the dreams have started again, and I wake up with the taste of pine needles in my mouth, with soil beneath my nails. So I guess this is me digging it back up. It started the summer after my parents moved us from Minneapolis to a rundown house near Rainy Lake in northern Minnesota. It was one of those life changes my dad was always chasing. We didn't talk about what happened before the move, my mom's breakdown, the way my older brother just disappeared from conversation like he'd never existed. I was 11, old enough to know something had snapped between them but too young to understand the shape of the damage. The house was what the realtor called the fixer-upper. It had warped floors, a leaking roof, and peeling green paint that made it look like it was molting. We were too far from town to get cable. My dad said the isolation would help us reset. That word, reset, he said it like he was rebooting a computer, not a family. Behind the house was a thick line of trees that bordered the property like a living wall. Dense, old woods. Not the kind you go camping in. These trees were gnarled and hungry-looking, their trunks twisted like ropes. I remember the air was always damp, even on hot days. You'd breathe it in and feel like the forest was climbing inside you. The trail behind our house wasn't a real trail. It was a narrow strip of trampled grass and broken twigs that wound into the woods, almost invisible unless you were looking straight at it. My dad thought it was a deer path. Maybe we'll get lucky and bag something this fall, he said with that smile that never reached his eyes. I was a quiet kid. Kept to myself. I drew a lot back then, mostly monsters, mostly things with too many eyes or not enough skin. My mom used to praise them, back when she still noticed anything. After the move, she just kind of all stopped. She'd sit in the living room all day, chain-smoking and listening to static on the radio. If I asked her something, she'd blink like I'd woken her from a coma and say, What was that, sweetheart? And then go right back to tuning the dial, as if she were searching for a voice she'd lost. My dad kept busy with repairs, or at least pretended to. He spent hours in the basement, hammering at nothing, drinking warm beers and muttering. Sometimes I'd hear him talking to someone, but whenever I checked, he was alone. He started locking the basement door after a while. So I spent my time exploring. The house, the lake, the trail. The first time I went into the woods, I didn't tell anyone. It was early September, that weird grey time when summer's ending but the air still clings to the heat. I brought my sketchbook, planning to draw squirrels or maybe spot a deer. The trail was tighter than I expected. Branches clawed at my clothes. The canopy was so thick that I couldn't see the sky. The deeper I went, the more the air changed, thicker, damper. I remember thinking it smelled wrong. Like mold and iron. Like something rotting. I must have walked for half an hour when I found it. A clearing. Perfectly circular. The ground was flat, not a single root breaking the surface. No underbrush, no fallen branches, no birds. Just dirt and stillness. In the center stood a structure, a wooden frame, like a door without walls. It was about 7 feet tall, 4 feet wide, made of gray timber weathered to the color of bone. It leaned slightly, like it had grown tired of standing. Nailed to the top beam was an old horseshoe, rusted black. And hanging from twine were dozens of small white objects. I stepped closer. The objects were teeth. I stood there for a long time, not moving, not breathing. I wasn't scared, not yet. I was fascinated. The frame didn't look like it had been built. It looked like it had grown out of the earth. It felt ancient. Sacred, maybe. But not in a good way. I remember hearing something then. Not footsteps. Not an animal. Something softer. Like whispering. Right behind me. I spun around, nothing. Just trees. I should have run. Instead, I stepped forward. Closer to the frame. The air inside the clearing felt different. Like the rules of the world had changed. Everything was quieter. Time didn't feel real anymore. I reached out and touched the wood. It was warm. I don't remember deciding to walk through it. One second I was standing in front of it, the next I was on the other side. And then everything changed. The trees looked the same, but the colors were wrong. The light was wrong. Everything was tinted green, like I was underwater. The sounds were muffled. Distant. I turned to look back at the frame, and it was gone. The clearing was gone too. Just woods. That was the first time I felt true, bone-deep fear. Not the fear of monsters or the dark. The fear of being utterly, cosmically lost. Like I'd slipped through a crack in the world and no one would ever find me. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. Branches tore at my skin. I couldn't hear birds, couldn't hear anything but my own breathing and those whispers. Louder now. Everywhere. Just behind me. Sometimes I thought I saw shapes between the trees, tall, thin things that never moved but always seemed closer when I looked again. I must have run for hours. And then, suddenly, I was home. Lying on the porch. It was morning. My mom was screaming my name, sobbing. My dad stood behind her, face pale and still, like someone had unplugged him. The sheriff was there too, talking into a walkie. I'd been missing for 5 hours, they said. They were about to organize a search party. I didn't tell them what happened. I couldn't. I didn't have the words. And even if I had, I was afraid that saying it out loud would make it real. Would bring it back. But it never left. That night, I had the first dream. I was back in the clearing. Back at the frame. Only this time, something was waiting for me. And if you think that's bad, you won't believe what happened next. I tried to forget what happened in the woods. I really did. For the first week after it, I stayed in my room, barely eating, barely sleeping. My mom called it a phase. Kids get moody, she told my dad. Especially when they move. But I wasn't moody. I was terrified. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the frame. That twisted doorway. I'd see it standing in the clearing like a wound in the earth, leaking something dark and silent into the world. And I'd feel the pull again. That awful, invisible thread yanking me toward it, like my body didn't belong to me anymore. Sometimes I'd wake up with scratches on my arms, leaves in my bed, dirt under my fingernails. My dad put a lock on the door after the third night. I heard them arguing in the kitchen. Something about me sleepwalking. Something about the lake. After that, they made me sleep with the window nailed shut. It didn't help. The dreams kept coming. In them, I was always back in the clearing. But it wasn't just the frame anymore. The ground was wet. Pulsing. Like skin stretched over something massive and breathing underneath. The trees leaned inward, creaking with hunger. And I wasn't alone. It never showed itself, not fully. But I could feel it there. Watching. Smiling. Whispering things I didn't understand. Things I could feel in my teeth. The worst part? It was starting to feel familiar. Like I'd been there before. Like I belonged there. I started drawing again. At first it helped. But the drawings changed. I stopped drawing superheroes and monsters. I started sketching trees. The clearing. The frame. The teeth. I drew them over and over. Then I started adding other things, faces in the trees, long fingers reaching through the dirt, a mouth in the sky. My mom found one of the drawings. I came home from school and she was standing in the kitchen holding it like it was toxic. Her hands were shaking. "This isn't normal," she said. "What the hell is this supposed to be?" I just stared at her. That night, I heard them arguing again. But it wasn't about me this time. It was about my brother. "You think it's starting again?" my dad asked. His voice was low. Shaky. We swore we wouldn't, my mom started, but then she cut herself off. The rest of their voices disappeared behind the closed door. I wasn't supposed to hear that. But I did. That was the first time I realized there were secrets in my family. Things I hadn't been told. Things that maybe no one wanted to remember. I wanted to ask about my brother. But I didn't even know where to start. He disappeared from our lives like someone had cut him out of our family photo and thrown the scrap away. My parents never talked about him. Never kept any pictures. His room had become a storage space, locked tight with a padlock I wasn't allowed to touch. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear something moving in there. Dragging. Scratching. Breathing. I told myself it was just my imagination. That I was letting the woods get inside me. That I was letting the dreams bleed into the real world. But then the knocking started. It always came at the same time. Just after midnight. 3 soft taps on my window. I didn't look the first few nights. I was too scared. I'd lie there under the covers, heart pounding, waiting for it to stop. But it didn't. It kept coming. Every night. Tap. 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 One night, I finally worked up the courage to look. The glass was fogged from my breath, but I could see it, just barely. A shadow, tall and thin, standing in the yard. It didn't move. Didn't wave. It just stared. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't tell if it even had one. I ran to get my dad. By the time he came back with the flashlight, it was gone. He told me it was probably a deer. I told him deer don't stand on 2 legs. He didn't answer. The next morning, the trail was gone. I checked after school. Walked to the edge of the woods and stared into the trees. But the path I'd taken before, or the deer trail, the one that led to the clearing, it wasn't there. The underbrush had grown over it completely, like the woods were healing over a wound. I should have felt relieved. But I didn't. Because something else was there instead. A new trail. Narrower. Sharper. Like it had been carved into the forest overnight. It wound in a different direction, deeper into the woods. The trees leaned tighter around it. The air felt colder, heavier. Something in me knew it was calling me again. But I didn't follow it. Not then. Instead, I went home, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. That day at school, I couldn't focus. My head was buzzing. Words on the page swam. I couldn't stop thinking about the trail. The dreams. The knocking. Then, just before lunch, I saw something that froze the blood in my body. A girl in my class, Jessica, was doodling on the edge of her notebook. I sat behind her and leaned forward. She was drawing trees. And in the middle of them a wooden frame. I felt my mouth go dry. At recess, I found her by the swings. "Hey," I said. "That thing you were drawing. What is it?" She glanced up at me, surprised. Then her face went blank. Guarded. "It's nothing," she said. "Just something I saw in the woods." My heart stopped. "Where?" I asked. She shrugged. "Behind my grandpa's cabin. Near the lake." My mind raced. There were dozens of cabins near the lake. It could have been anywhere. I hesitated. Then asked, "Did you ever go through it?" Jessica looked at me sharply. Her lip trembled. "No," she said. "But my cousin did." I waited. She didn't say anything else. Just turned away and started swinging. I didn't push her. I didn't have to. That night, the knocking came again. Only this time, it didn't stop. Tap. 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 Over and over. I got up. Walked to the window. And there it was. The frame. standing in the yard. Not just the shadow of it. The whole thing. Wood splintered, nailed together with rusted iron. Teeth dangling from twine. A horseshoe crusted in something dark. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But it was there. Real. Waiting. I blinked. And it was gone. I stood there, staring at the empty grass, the tree swaying gently in the wind. Then I noticed something on the glass. A smear. Red. Not blood. Something thicker. Darker. It formed a word. Soon. And if you think that's bad, you won't believe what happened next. I stayed home from school the next day. Faked a fever. My mom didn't question it. She was too distracted, too hollow. She just left a glass of orange juice on my nightstand, kissed my forehead without looking me in the eye, and went back to her station in front of the static radio. I stayed in bed most of the morning, covers pulled up to my chin, watching the shadow of the tree shift on my ceiling. The word soon replayed over and over in my mind. Not just the word itself, but how it looked, smeared like a finger dragged through wet ash. Like someone, or something, had written it from the outside. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see if it was still there. I pulled on a hoodie, crept through the living room, and stepped out into the yard. The air was unusually still. Even the birds were quiet. My breath fogged in front of me, despite it being early fall. There was nothing in the yard. No sign of the frame. No blood on the grass. No footprints. But there was something else. A new trail. Not behind the house this time. This one started just beyond the tool shed, snaking into the trees like a wound freshly reopened. The ground was dry, but the soil there looked churned. Disturbed. Like something had been dragged through it. I stared at it for a long time. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to go back inside. Lock the door. Crawl under the blankets and wait for everything to go back to normal. But some part of me knew there was no going back. I followed the trail. It wasn't like the old one. This one was crooked, malicious. The trees pressed closer. Their bark was dark, almost black, and their branches hung low like arms reaching down. The deeper I went, the colder it got. And the quieter. No insects. No birds. Just my footsteps and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. After what felt like half an hour, the path widened. Another clearing. But this one wasn't empty. In the center stood a figure. My first thought was scarecrow. It was tall, lanky, with arms that hung too long and a head tilted at an unnatural angle. The clothes it wore were old, tattered flannel, dirty jeans, but they looked familiar. Too familiar. I took a step closer. It wasn't a scarecrow. It was a body. Staked upright in the dirt, wrists nailed to the sides of a makeshift wooden cross, like some grotesque effigy. The face was bloated. Skin grayish-blue. Eyes bulging. But I knew him. Even after all these years. Even after the photos had been destroyed and his name had been buried in silence. It was my brother. I stumbled backward, fell to my knees. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream but no sound came out. My brain couldn't process it. Couldn't accept it. He had disappeared when I was 6. They said he ran away. That he got mixed up with some older kids, skipped town. But I remembered how my mom cried every night. How my dad drank more. How one day they stopped talking about him entirely. Now here he was. Crucified in the woods. Only, it wasn't fresh. This had happened years ago. The flesh was stretched tight in some places, sloughing in others. But he'd been preserved somehow. Like something had kept him from rotting completely. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Then I heard it. Whispering. Soft at first. Then louder. More insistent. It wasn't coming from behind me, it was coming from him. From his mouth. I stood. Took a step forward. His lips were moving, barely. Twitching. And his eyes, God, his eyes were open. They rolled toward me. Not fast. Not human. Just shifted. Like something inside was looking out. I screamed. Stumbled backward again, tripped on a root, landed hard on my shoulder. The air rushed out of me. When I looked up, the whispers were gone. So was my brother. Not vanished, moved. He was now facing me, head tilted straight, mouth agape in a Richter's grin. A smear of black dripping from his lips like ink. And then I heard it again. The name. Not spoken aloud. But inside my head. Old Gugu. It came with a rush of images. Teeth. Red eyes. Long limbs. Something ancient. Crawling through cracks in the world like a spider through broken glass. I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I burst out of the woods, collapsed onto the grass behind our house. I stayed there, heaving, dry retching, until my mom found me. She screamed. Helped me inside. Asked me what happened, what was wrong. But I couldn't speak. All I said was, he's still there. She froze. What did you say? I saw him, I whispered. Nate. He's in the woods. She slapped me. Hard. It came out of nowhere. The sound echoed in the silent kitchen. My cheek burned. Her hand trembled. Don't say that name, she hissed. Don't you ever say that name again. Then she crumpled to the floor and started sobbing. Not the kind of sobbing you can hold. The kind that rips out of you like your ribs are splitting open. I just stood there, frozen. Eventually, she dragged herself to her feet and stumbled into her room. Locked the door. That night, my dad got drunk and sat with me at the kitchen table. He opened a bottle of Jack, poured 2 fingers into a chipped glass, and stared into it like it might hold answers. I was gonna tell you, he said. Tell me what? About Nate. About what happened. He didn't look at me when he spoke. Just stared at the glass. We didn't lose him. He didn't run away. He went into those woods. Found something he wasn't supposed to. Something old. Something that doesn't like to be seen. I said nothing. It takes kids, mostly. That's what the stories say. Always has. Every few decades, someone disappears. People say it's bears, or they fell in the lake, or just skipped town. But that's not it. The woods they remember. He finally looked at me then. His eyes were bloodshot. Red-rimmed. You went through the frame, didn't you? I nodded. His hand shook. We tried to burn it once, he said. Me and your uncle. Years ago. After Nate. But it came back. It always comes back. I asked him why. He didn't answer. Just said, if it marked you, you'll start seeing things. Things that feel like dreams but aren't. Places you've never been but feel familiar. You'll hear the whispers. And then it'll call you back. I asked him what to do. He poured another drink. You run, he said. You run like hell. That night, the frame came back. Not outside. In the hallway. I woke up around 2 a.m. The house was dead silent. But there was light under my door. Flickering. Like firelight. I got up, opened the door. And there it was. Standing at the end of the hall. The same frame. Same horseshoe. Same teeth. But now the wood was bleeding. Thick, black sap oozing from the grain. The floor beneath it pulsed like flesh. Beyond the frame, darkness. Not the absence of light. A presence. Something waiting. I took a step toward it. Then another. The whispers filled my head. We remember you. You belong to the forest now. I reached out. And someone grabbed me. Pulled me back. It was my mom. She tackled me to the ground, screaming. My dad rushed out of the bedroom with a shotgun. Fired once. The hallway flashed white. When I looked again, the frame was gone. So was the hallway. The walls were splattered with soot. The floor blackened. My mom was crying. My dad was shaking. The gun still smoking. None of us slept that night. The next morning, we packed. Threw everything we could into trash bags and boxes. My dad didn't speak. My mom wouldn't look me in the eye. We left before noon. Just got in the car and drove. No one said goodbye. No one looked back. I thought that would be the end of it. But when we pulled up to the motel that night, there was something on the passenger seat. A drawing. One of mine. The clearing. The frame. And standing beside it, me. Smiling. And if you think that's bad, you won't believe what happened next. We didn't talk about it after we left. Not the frame. Not Nate. Not the woods. Not even each other. My dad got a job driving trucks. My mom worked nights cleaning medical offices. I bounced between schools like a forgotten bag, always the new kid, always quiet. We lived in cheap rentals, month to month, like fugitives without a crime. The drawing I found in the car disappeared. I never saw it again. Never even mentioned it. I'd started to learn that some things became more dangerous when you gave them shape through words. Years passed. The dreams faded. The whispers dulled. I almost let myself believe it was over. Then I got the call. It was a Friday. I was in college, 2 hours into a hangover and eating cold pizza off a textbook when my dad's number lit up my phone. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. I answered, expecting bad news. It was worse. Your mother's gone, he said. She went back. My mind short-circuited. Back where? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She packed a bag 2 days ago, he said. Left a note. Said she needed to see him. Needed to know. I didn't ask who him was. She meant Nate. Of course she did. I drove all night. No GPS. Just memory and instinct. I hadn't seen that road since I was 11, but I remembered every curve, every pothole, every mile marker. The lake was still there, dark and still like a sleeping eye. The woods looked the same, maybe thicker. But the house, it was different. The paint had peeled away completely. Vines choked the porch. The windows were black. It looked abandoned, except the front door was open. I stepped inside. Dust choked the air. Furniture under sheets. An empty bottle on the counter. A single chair in the middle of the living room. Nothing else. Then I saw the dirt. Tracks, footprints, faint but there, leading out the back door. Into the trees. I followed them. I don't know why. Some part of me knew she wasn't in there anymore. Not alive, anyway. But I had to see. I had to understand. The trail was clearer than ever. Like something had cleared it for me. No underbrush. Just packed soil and silence. Even the air felt rehearsed, like the world was holding its breath. And then I saw it. The clearing. Just as I remembered it. The frame still standing. Horseshoe still nailed to the top beam. The teeth newer. Whiter. There were more of them now. I stepped into the clearing and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The world muffled. The colors dulled. I felt like I'd slipped underwater again. And then I saw her. My mom. She was sitting cross-legged in front of the frame, hands on her knees, eyes closed. She wasn't breathing. At first I thought she was dead. Then she spoke. "I saw him," she said. I didn't move. My voice stuck in my throat. "He's in there," she continued. "He's waiting." I knelt beside her. "Mom, we have to go." She shook her head. "You don't hear it? He's calling us." I took her hands. They were ice. "He's not Nate," I said. Her eyes opened. They were black. Not dilated, black. No whites. No iris. Like twin holes punched into her skull. "He is everything," she whispered. And then she lunged at me. Her hands wrapped around my throat, nails digging in. I fell backward, gasping, trying to break her grip. Her face was inches from mine, mouth stretched in a grin too wide, teeth sharp and small like bone chips. "Join us," she screeched. "He's hungry." I managed to shove her off. She hit the ground, rolled, and began convulsing. Frothing. Her body arched, eyes fluttering. Then, she went still. I crawled to her, panting. She was dead. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't broken, but because I knew this wasn't the end. It was the invitation. Behind me, the frame groaned. Wood splitting. Teeth rattling. And then I saw it. Something stepped through. Not walked, stepped. Like it had been just behind the veil, waiting for its turn on stage. It was tall. Humanoid, but off. Its skin rippled like oil. Eyes red and too many. A mouth that stretched from ear to ear, filled with jagged stone teeth. And it smiled. "Danny," it said. The voice wasn't loud. It was soft. Fatherly. Familiar. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. My limbs felt pinned. My body not mine. "We've missed you," it said. I looked down at my mother. Her skin had gone grey. Her lips still curled in that awful smile. Her eyes now my eyes. "Let me show you," it said. "Let me teach you." The world flickered. Like a strobe. Blackness, then light. Over and over. And with each flicker, I saw a different version of the clearing. 100 different versions. Children chained to trees. Families kneeling before the frame, eyes sewn shut. My brother, Nate, still hanging from the cross, but now smiling. Skin bloated. Eyes glowing. And always lit. Watching. Growing. "Who are you?" I whispered. It didn't answer. Instead, it opened its mouth, and from it poured voices. Thousands. Some screaming. Some laughing. Some just sobbing. All layered. All speaking one word. Home. I screamed. And then I was somewhere else. Lying in the middle of the highway. Night sky above. Headlights blinding. Brakes screeching. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital. They said I'd been found wandering the road. Covered in scratches. No ID. No phone. Just a slip of paper in my hand. On it, in red ink. Soon. The police tried to ask me questions. I told them I didn't remember. They let me go. My dad never came to the hospital. I don't think he's alive anymore. I don't think any of us are, not really. I moved far away. Changed my name. Started over. But the dreams are back. And something else. Last week, I got a package. No return address. Inside, my old sketchbook. The last page? A drawing. Of me. Standing in the clearing. Smiling. And the frame wide open. And if you think that's bad, you won't believe what happened next. I haven't spoken to anyone in 3 weeks. Not a word. The voice, the one that used to be mine, no longer feels like it belongs to me. It waits behind my teeth, laced with something too ancient and sharp to be human. Every time I open my mouth, I'm afraid of what might come out. So I write. That's the only way I know how to say this without feeding it. Because it feeds on voice. On recognition. On remembrance. And when you speak its name, when you draw its shape, it grows bolder. But I'm out of time. There's too much you need to know. Too much I need to confess. After I got out of the hospital, I tried to pretend again. I got an apartment in a city where trees were scarce and people were too busy to notice a man silently unraveling. I worked nights cleaning offices. I never went near parks. I unplugged my radio, ripped out the fire alarms when they started whispering, and slept with my back to every mirror. Still, it found ways to speak to me. The sketchbook. The note. The eyes in the crosswalks. The dreams. Always the dreams. In them, I was a child again, walking barefoot down that familiar trail. But now, the clearing was infinite, stretching in all directions, the frame duplicated 1,000 times, a forest of thresholds. And every time I passed through one, something came back with me. Things that weren't me. At first, it was little things. I'd find pine needles on my carpet. Dirt under my fingernails. Water pooling beneath the front door. Then, the drawings started appearing. Pages I hadn't made. Pages of people, strangers, standing in front of the frame. Some crying. Some smiling. One of them I recognized, Jessica. The girl from my childhood. The one who said her cousin went missing. In the drawing, she was walking through the frame. The next morning, I searched her name. Dead. Found in the woods outside Duluth. No cause of death. Another page appeared the next day. This one was my neighbor. Then my coworker. Then a barista I barely spoke to. All of them drawn mid-step into the clearing. I started staying awake for days. Trying to stop whatever was happening. Trying to stop me. Because I knew I was the one drawing them. Even if I didn't remember it. Even if it wasn't me anymore. One night, I woke up with a mouthful of dirt. I went into the bathroom. Turned on the light. And saw them. Roots. Twisting up from beneath my skin. Like veins made of bark. Crawling up my neck, blooming at the base of my skull. I screamed. Tore at them. They bled sap. I tried everything. Burned the sketchbook. Salted the windows. Spoke to a priest who wouldn't stop staring at my hands. But nothing worked. Because this wasn't about possession. It was about becoming. I was being hollowed out. Turned into something else. Something that could walk between the trees. Something that could smile without lips and sing without sound. Something that remembered the forest. 2 nights ago, I dreamed of my mother again. She was standing in the nursery we never built. Holding something wrapped in a cloth that dripped black. She looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "It's your turn now." Then she smiled. And I felt it inside me, that old pull. The thread. So I packed a bag. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. I drove north. Back to the lake. Back to the house. It was completely gone. No boards. No frame. No debris. Just an empty lot, fenced off with a sign that said "Coming soon, Lakeside Condos." But I knew better. I walked to the edge of the trees. And the trail was there. Clear. Fresh. Like it had been waiting. I followed it. I don't know how long it took. The sun didn't move. The air didn't change. Time bent around me. And when I reached the clearing, the frame was there. But now it was massive. 3 stories tall. made of twisted bones and pulsing bark. The teeth were human now. Dozens of them. And it was open. On the other side, I saw the forest. Not the one I came from. The other one. The one underneath. The hollow wood. Where the trees breathe. Where the dirt remembers your name. Where the things we bury learn to climb back out. And standing inside it was Nate. Smiling. He held out a hand. So I stepped forward. And the moment I crossed through, everything stopped. Sound. Air. Thought. I was nowhere and everywhere. I saw them, all of them. Everyone who'd ever passed through. Their faces layered behind mine. Their voices inside mine. Not screaming. Not crying. Rejoicing. I was finally home. That was 3 days ago. Or 3 years. Time is a circle here. I'm writing this now not to warn you, because it's too late for that, but to remember. Because remembering feeds it. And forgetting binds you. There's only one way to stay free. You have to give it to someone else. Pass it on. So this is your story now. You've seen the frame. You've heard the whispers. You feel that pull at the base of your spine. Don't pretend you don't. Don't pretend it isn't already happening. You'll wake up with soil in your mouth. You'll hear scratching behind your walls. You'll see it at the end of the hallway. Watching. Waiting. And when you do, don't run. Because it loves a chase. Instead, smile. It likes that best. This story was completely true, except for all the parts that weren't. Thanks for listening. That's how it happened, or didn't. But if it did, don't think it couldn't happen to you. Subscribe to It Happened to Me, a new story drops daily.